Looking for the perfect hidden gem for your next night out? Welcome to Almost on the Lake, where the food is delicious. The service is top-notch. And the atmosphere feels like home. Family owned and locally loved. Come see why everyone is talking about Almost on the Lake.
Nestled in the heart of historic downtown Wilkesboro, the 1915 offers a wedding experience like no other. Once a federal courthouse and post office, the 1915 combines rich history with timeless charm. From intimate gatherings to full-day rentals, we provide the perfect backdrop for your most cherished moments. With indoor and outdoor options, bridal and groom suites, every detail is crafted just for you. Make your wedding unforgettable at the 1915, Wilkesboro's historic wedding venue, where your story begins.
Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of Life in Wilkes.
Good morning, Karen. Steve, how are you?
Great.
Doing good.
How are you, Carl?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, this is such a wonderful show today that we're going to get into for a multitude of reasons. It involves Benton Hall. It involves a legendary person in the Carolinas and here in Wilkes County, Tom Dooley. When you came in, Karen, I mentioned to you my memory of when we first met years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
And you were at Benton Hall at that time, and we had our first meeting in your office at Benton Hall, and we talked about Tom Dooley. And I don't remember how long it took for us to get into production because we did a broadcast special together for Life in the Carolinas.
Right.
And we filmed at Whippoorwill Academy, right?
We've done that too, yeah.
We filmed there, a piece of it, and then we went to the amphitheater and filmed outside, which for the show, so we could have some B-roll of the actual play, which we thought was great because when you're outside doing it, there was a lot of room to shoot guns and have horses and all types of things, and it was great on camera. But then there were also those little wee midgeons, those little things. It was humid, I think, too. So there was that part, but that goes with an outside drama, doesn't it?
Snakes, tree frogs.
That's right. I heard the tree frogs. But that snake, I really thought that was a patron sitting beside me. But that's probably a snake. Wow. So you really experienced that?
We've had a lot of little creepy crawly friends out there. So.
That's great. Now, when we first met, I was trying to remember when that was. That's 10, 12 years ago, I guess, to do maybe longer than that.
It was longer. I was at Benton Hall before I moved from that.
Right.
I was there for over a decade.
Okay.
And then,
all right.
Then with Blue Moon, then we were outside for almost a decade. Yeah.
Wow.
Time has really passed.
And wow. So it was, I can't remember when we were there filming, had you been do you remember, had you been doing the show there for very long outside?
I can't remember when you came.
Yeah.
But we were there for quite a while.
Yeah.
He deserves a fair trial as any of you in a situation like this would. Now, I've talked to Mary Dooley and many of you here today. Based on these conversations, I do not believe Tom Dooley to be guilty. And because of the prejudice here in this community and the passionate nature of the crime, I'm going to the Wilkes County Courthouse today with Tom's mother and sisters to make a motion that this trial be moved to Statesville.
And of course, the Army Corps of Engineers that had to do major repairs out there, and it became unsafe, So we decided to go indoors, and then we decided we really liked the air conditioning.
Yes. Doesn't that happen as the years pass? It's like, when we're younger, we're like, oh, this is great and rugged, and.
And it was beautiful.
It was, but the convenience of. So when you were making that first decision, I remember that you took it on the road a bit, right? So we saw it in Statesville, that's right. So that was a pretty big stage.
That was fun.
And that was a nice experience. Steve, did we go together to that one? Or?
We did go see it, but I was not in it, but we went to see it.
No, I knew you weren't.
Yeah, we went to see it.
I think you and I and Ken went.
We did.
If I remember correctly.
We did.
And I thought I said, oh, that's nice. And I was sitting there, I said, I wonder if he's going back to Benton Hall. And then, was it the next year that announcement was made?
Right. Playmakers approached us about partnering with them and going to Benton Hall. And again, air condition was a big factor.
Yes.
But we also, it was kind of nice for the majority of the cast that was from Wilkes to not have to do all that driving in the summer. Right. And so we came back there and we just loved it. We made, a lot of new acquaintances. I can't talk this morning at Benton Hall, and we liked what we did there. So
nice. So so let's talk about a variety of things, but the crew. Since you were right there, the crew. How many people does it take to put on The Legend of Tom? This is a program from last year, right? And this was at Benton Hall because I came and I sat. I think I was right on the front row, and when her hand fell out of that thing, I was like, "Whoa!" Whoa! So that was a little unexpected. I mean, I'd seen it before, but not
that close.
And it looked like. It looked bad. So
well, and that's another thing that Benton Hall brings. It's a larger stage, but it is not so large.
Right.
Matt Gray Auditorium in Statesville was wonderful, but if you sat anywhere like halfway back, those actors are about that big.
Right.
And so at Benton Hall, you're just right there with them. And we play a lot of things forward and some things down in the audience.
Right.
And so you could literally at times when things are exciting reach out and touch almost some of the actors, and it really puts them in the middle of Elkville. So
I like an intimate stage. I think that's Benton Hall, Steve, you have your main stage and then you have the black box.
Correct.
So the black box is very intimate. It's kind of like you're part of the play itself, whatever's going on.
Yes.
But in the main stage, you can get a lot more people there, but it's still smaller. Well, it's still appropriate to call it intimate, right?
Yeah, compared to, a 900-seat auditorium.
Let's talk a minute about Benton Hall. And we've had a show already, Steve, about the origins of Benton Hall and how it came to be what it is today, and you were certainly an integral part of that process. What are your earliest memories of The Legend of Tom Dooley?
Well, Karen started working on that in like 98 or 99.
We opened in 2001. And so I worked on it in early 2000.
Okay. So she worked on it, and she would ask me to, proof it or give her ideas and things like that. So we talked quite a bit about that play, and it was just amazing just to see it develop from where it started. So it was a great script, and then she had a read through over at Benton Hall, and just wasn't casting the play. We just wanted to hear it, and I remember that vividly, and that was so exciting. And after we had the read through, it was kind of like, it was silence, and then people started applauding.
Wow,
But,
that moment of it all just processing, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, so that was the beginning, and then we put it together, and I mean, we worked hard on that, marketing, the set. She had a running water spring in there, and
In Benton Hall?
I was determined to do that.
Right.
I lived beside Elk Creek, and at night, we didn't always have air condition going, and I'd lift up my window at night, and through the screen, I went to sleep listening to the creek.
So that was
That was mandatory. I
That
had
was
to have
your
it.
lullaby,
That
right?
was it.
and crickets in the background, and just I mean, you really felt like you were in Elk Creek.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
then we had local people playing music, and I forgot who all they were. I think RG was in that.
RG, the Elkville String Band.
Yeah, and wasn't Jerry Langford in that?
He
Yep.
was.
Okay. And some other guys, and they played the music, and it was just a huge success. What was really exciting, to be in the box office, and you would pick up the phone, and people were wanting tickets, and we didn't have their performance available, and they wanted the next one and that, and then they all wanted to sit together, and we couldn't do that. And, I mean, it was like we'd never seen anything like that. Hang the phone down and ring again. It was seriously, we had somebody answering the phone. People walking in the office to get tickets.
So is it safe to say that that's the most successful production or original production at Benton Hall?
I would say so. I mean, we did a lot of other successful programs. Wizard of Oz was another one that sold out.
That's what I was going to say.
So we did, Oliver. We did a lot of plays that sold out, but that was the first one. And, well, no, it wasn't the first one, because Oliver was before that.
But this is different, though, right? Because, I mean, Karen, you wrote this piece.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about that for a moment. And the fact that you tackled such a massive piece of Americana history, was that different than things that you had done before?
It was, but it was almost easier because I grew up there. And my father had a store there. And all the families that were involved in this came to trade with him.
You mean originally involved with the original Tom Dooley story? Or?
No, well, the story, these were their ancestors, but they came and traded there. And so I heard them debate. And they, the Fosters were fiercely protective of Laura. The Miltons won't talk about Anne. I'm trying to think of the Dooleys. Absolutely, he's innocent beyond the shadow of a doubt. Tom is.
So you grew up around the descendants of those people.
And one of my grandfathers, great, is Calvin Coles.
Okay.
So his store was across the road from my father's. My grandfather's was on the corner, and my daddy's was in the middle. So I grew up in a store life, and I knew all those families. So I talked to them when I was writing this. I went to see a lot of them that were
descendants.
Getting very old, but still held on really tight to their beliefs about what really happened.
What were their thoughts about you doing this? Because this is their story too, right?
They were excited. A lot of them were very excited. I did not get the Miltons to talk to me, but I had a lot of people talk about Anne. And it was never very positive. And
is that why the Milton descendants didn't particularly care to talk about that?
And then the Fosters, were fiercely protective of Laura. They didn't want one bad thing said about her. And we put legend in this title. There is a real story, a real story, and I know that story, but it's not really entertainment, maybe any more than diarrhea would be an entertainment. I'm just saying, that's a terrible thing to say. You might want to cut that.
I don't know. I mean, I think the point is, it was a pretty rough, gruesome thing that happened.
It
right?
was. Yes. It was very gruesome, and I think that the court records really tell what happened.
Oh, sure.
But it's not an outcome I want to discuss here. I would rather people leave that theater with their own idea, debate it on the way home.
Of course.
You know.
And the good thing about it, it is historically significant. And we can go on those journeys of exploring other documents or the court documents or what. I've interviewed people that have written those type of books as well. And it's fascinating, but what you've done to bring it to life, that makes it more relatable. And I think we all know that people do good things and not so good things. So,
Right.
But there is a story.
It raises a lot of questions. I don't make them perfect. And it raises a lot of questions about what really happened. And again, even though I'm pretty sure what happened, I'll never know.
Right.
And someone told me that in this county, and of course they weren't embalmed, that if they were right now, if you found the area where they were buried, there wouldn't be one thing, not even a tooth left, because of all the lime that's in our ground, in the dirt.
Sure.
And that's a pretty good point. There's nothing left. There's no way we can use forensics or, there's nothing
Right, to figure
left.
all that out. Well, wouldn't you think it's a bit like the Kingston Trio when they found this, because they went on their discovery process, come to Wilkes County, there was that process of trying to figure out the story, and on stage when it's performed, which it became very popular, it wasn't terribly gruesome. I mean, there were moments, of course, but they weren't going in great detail. So there is that thing of let's be entertaining, let's give an audience something that we can digest, and then we can walk away curious and maybe explore it more on our own. Is that the idea?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
I think people, if you hear this conversation we're having right now, you think, oh, well, that's not a true story. It is a true story.
Right.
There's a lot of details, but bottom line, it was a love triangle.
Right.
It was.
Tom Dooley was hung, and most people think he wasn't, that he was protecting somebody else. And, she killed her, no, she killed this one. So it just answers that we'll never know.
Right. It could have been either way, right?
Yeah.
It could have been a combination of all those. I mean, when I read about the history side and the treatments for the things that people had, the treatments would make you a bit insane itself, So a person might do anything.
Right.
I suppose.
There's a book that I think it's John Fletcher, the
That's
doctor,
right.
wrote. And the thing I loved about him is he gave me credit for just saying, I'm telling you the legend.
Right.
There was no bones about it. I just said, this is what it is. And there's so many people that write the stories, and I commend them for writing the stories, but they say, this is the truth. This
Right.
is the truth, And I just want to tell the legend, the story behind the Kingston Trio. And I talked to Bob Shane. He called me years ago after the first Dooley.
Right.
And there were crawlers along the bottom of ABC, NBC, CBS saying, hey, Kingston Trio, where are you? They want to pardon Tom Dooley when we tried
Right.
to pardon
Yeah.
him. And he called me, and we talked for a long time about that. And then at the end, he goes, well, you keep telling that story. And I said, well, you keep singing that song, and
Right.
we'll all do fine. And
That's
so,
right.
and it's true. And of course, he died a few years ago.
Right.
But and he kept up with me over the years. So he's just a really nice, and wrote the foreword for my book.
Right.
So pretty
means
nice
a lot,
fella.
doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Well, I think also the idea of being a playwright and creating something for an audience of people who are going to sit there, you have to be mindful of that experience they're having,
Right.
and you want them to come back. So being that type of writer is different than doing a novel.
Right.
Right. So I think you want more sensationalism in the novel, if you
Yeah.
will.
Well, there's
But here, you touch on some things, but it's still palatable, right?
Well, there's so much hatred and fighting and the hanging and all the stuff that went on
Right.
that
Yes.
that to me, I had to put humor in there to make it digestible to
Sure.
the audience. And we have children in it this year, and we're doing fun things with them, and to make it lighthearted. And
But wouldn't life, if you think, we're talking about a period piece.
Right.
So you do have this great tragic thing that happened, but people were still living their life, right?
Exactly.
So there would be moments of celebration and joy while the bad stuff was going on as well, right? So in that sense, I think it's a good portrayal of life at that time as well,
Right.
and how people might respond. Steve, what are the things that you remember most about those early performances and being in the audience and seeing, or wherever you were, because you were definitely intimately involved with this process of bringing it to life? What were your observations and feeling about what you were experiencing?
Well, it was a wonderful drama. It had all the aspects you look for in a good play. But as a playmaker, and, this was new for us. This was, auditorium. We hadn't finished it maybe a couple of years before that. To be back there and watching this show, and it was something that came true. We started talking about this when we first formed Wilkes Playmakers.
We did.
And members were kind of divided on it then and said, no, we can't do that. It's too big a project. No, we can't take that on, which is true. But, we were still thought we could. But anyway, we waited years, and then when the time was right. But to sit there in the audience and see that auditorium packed, we brought chairs in, don't tell the fire marshal, and it was just packed. It was just overflowing, and people were excited. The music was great. It was almost unbelievable.
Was it extra special, or were you mindful as you were seeing this unfold in front of you and how people were responding to it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a show, because you have lots of shows, but this is something that's homegrown, right?
Yeah.
This is something This is something that Karen wrote. This is something that you're bringing to life, and you're getting, well, it sounds like greater accolades for that show and that performance than maybe some of the classics.
Yeah. And
is that true?
Yes,
is that true?
Yes, yeah. You were asking how I felt. I felt proud. I've had 3 children, and I was just proud of this play being born about as much as, having a child born, because we really birthed it. Mm-hmm. And then Ken Welburn took it to another level with Pardon Tom Dooley.
Right.
And
he told me about that.
And that was fun. I forget how many people signed the petition, but
oh yeah, we had a big.
There was a lot. It was in the thousands. The people were, and they grew legs, as he says, and it was all over TV, and it was even on the BBC.
So what do you think? What do you think as, you look back at that experience, and now you've lived with Tom Dooley for a lot more years now, and you have your script, but then also I'm sure you continually learn more about this person. What are your thoughts now? Should he have been pardoned, or are you not sure?
Can't say.
Yeah.
I'll never say.
Oh, good.
Good answer.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
That's good. All right. What do you think, Steve?
I don't think he did.
Right. You think he took the blame for the girls?
I can't say.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. We can't say, because we don't really know. But
True.
To me, it adds a little more intrigue. Even I don't think that would hurt the story at all to know that, here's a guy, and he had a girlfriend and had another girlfriend and had another girlfriend,
and maybe another girlfriend. Yeah.
All of that going on, and something bad happened, and he took the fall for it.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun last year as people were leaving, and they would tell you how much they enjoyed the play and how great it was. And I said, who do you think did it? And, it was such and such. Oh, well, Tom didn't do it. So, well, it was Tom.
Right.
It was just so much fun to get those. And that's really how she wrote it.
Nice. So it helps people go down that road.
Yes.
And that's what makes it a great show.
They make their own choice, and nobody really can definitely prove what happened, but on the way home, I can just listen in my head to what the conversation, and they're all trying to prove their point, on the way home. And that's what I wanted.
And those points and those conversations are happening from people from all over. So, I mean, you literally had some busloads of people come in last year, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they were coming in from, not from Wilkes County, but other areas.
And other countries.
Yes. So does that ever surprise you to see that, or is it just gone long enough now that you expect that to happen?
Maybe a little of both. I don't think I'll ever stop being surprised. I really don't. And but they do. They come from everywhere, and they all have an opinion. So.
Yes, that's nice.
And it's interesting how people in Europe know the story.
They know it
the
almost
song.
better than
There was someone that I interviewed, and they were. This has been some years ago, but they talked about that song was one of the ways that they learned English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, begun that process
that
because the Kingston Trio were incredibly popular in Europe, and there were people who believed that now that's how life was in the U.S.
Right.
And I guess they're not wrong to a degree in certain areas, so certain situations. But having an impact on the world is a pretty big thing. So knowing now that you're part of that, Karen, knowing that you have participated in creating this thing. It's got your name on it. You're directing. You're still heavily involved. Is that particularly satisfying for you? As you look back at all your body of work, is this one of your more significant things that you look at life and say, okay, that's a real big thumbs up?
I have a lot of things in my life, and they're simple things that no one would think is grand. Being a grandmother's one of those, but
yeah, of course.
But I do say that it's one of the highlights of my life. It really is, and one of the things I'm finding out as time goes on is how many of the young people who are now married and have children or what, when they were younger, they were quoting the show, high school and college-age children that knew all these things. And they said, I never knew before I did the show what Blackberry Winter was. I didn't know, about Dog Days. I had no idea what flat-footing was. They go on and on about the little things that are what I thought growing up was just common knowledge, living or growing up in a store and listening to all the older farmers come in and talk about things, and we lived by the seasons. And the kids now are so far removed from living, I'm starting to really sound old, but they're so far removed from living by the seasons. They're on their computers, they're doing all these things, and we literally were sent outside and said, go play.
Right.
And, and we did.
And it was good.
And we had hay rides in the fall and molassy boilings, and we had, in the spring, everybody came in to get their seeds and all the things to plant. And, we really did live by the seasons, and we ate by the seasons.
Yes. Do you still like molasses?
I love molasses.
How do you do your molasses? So do you, I'm not talking about the making of them, but do you put them on hot biscuit? How do you do them?
Biscuits, and my mother, because she listened to her mother, always made molassy cookies, and they had a lot of iron in them, and you'd get ready for the winter by eating those iron-filled cookies, Right. And she was so serious about it, so, But there's a lot of things that you eat by the season, and then you store to prepare for winter, and they don't know that. It's something that's vanishing as far as what the young people know now.
So maybe there's another play in the works, the lost traditions, the things that give us a strong sense of fulfillment. Right.
Well, one of the things our young people, a week from this coming Monday, we have a lady coming in to teach them how to flatfoot, because in the beginning of the scene, the little ones are going to be flatfooting
so
before the
this is during
dance.
Your rehearsal, right?
Yes, and they'll learn that, and then they'll, of course, by the time they finish, they can talk about Blackberry Winter and all these other things too.
Yeah.
And
nice.
we hope the story and the things that went on during that time will just go on and be a good memory for these kids.
Do you imagine that the Legend of Tom Dooley will always have an annual performance, because it's become such a tradition and so many people have not seen it yet?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of people who have seen it, they want to come back, right?
We have some that come every year.
And have been since you started?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Dooley fans.
Well, that's extra. That's extra rewarding, isn't it?
Well, to answer your question, I sure hope it lasts for a long, long time.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So we're back at Benton Hall. Welcome. It's the homecoming. I think that's what we'll call this, the homecoming show, Tim. All right? Let's do that. Karen's homecoming. How's that?
That's a nice feeling.
Is that good? I think that's what this is. When Steve and I were talking about this and seeing your Blue Moon Productions space, getting all that cleaned out, moved back to Benton Hall, and I know that had to be a moment of a surreal moment for you and filled with lots of emotions, right?
It was. I mean, we've had a wonderful time, but it's just the time is right, and it felt right. And I'll share a little story if I can.
Yes.
Last night, I had a grandson up there. One of our Tom and Ann's from the past had 3 of their children up there. One of the Playmakers, Claire Rhodes, had her daughter and son up there. And we were doing all these things. And Nicole Collins got a little emotional about it. And I said, we have our children here now,
right.
And of course my grandchild. Yeah. And it's just, it was a moment when I really did feel like I was home. And I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right.
But it's true. I'm sorry.
No.
Cut that.
You are at home. You are at home.
I mean, that's what it feels like to come home, right?
It does.
I mean,
go to Steve.
Yeah. So, Steve,
we're thrilled.
Yes,
we're thrilled.
You're thrilled about this. It really couldn't be better, right?
Correct.
I mean, the time of evolution for not just Karen coming back, but the Wilkes Playmakers and Benton Hall in general is on a trajectory now of growth, right?
Yes.
More people are
absolutely
becoming aware of Benton Hall and the Playmakers and what good things are going on there.
Yeah. We've had a rough time in many areas, but we have a wonderful board now. We have a lot of enthusiasm. We got Karen back in Blue Moon, and you're right, we're on a trajectory, and we're working on a great season for 26.
Right.
And Karen will be directing another play right after Tom Dooley called The Play That Goes Wrong. Some people may be familiar with it, some not, but it's a wonderful play. It's a comedy. It's totally different than Tom Dooley, but it's going to be a hoot and a half.
No, that's fantastic. Well, you definitely have to have me seats for that, because that, I'm on the comedy train now, so I go to every show that has any hope of laughter.
This is one. Get ready.
Yeah,
but anyway, Karen
fantastic.
just brings her talent and her visions back. And
bring a whole bunch of talented people with me, though, too.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was a great group, and they're excited.
Nice.
And we really saw some possibilities last night, not just for us, but for our children.
And that's important, because we really want to get more children involved and, watch them grow. And they're our future. So.
Well, let's wrap this homecoming show up with just a couple of thoughts. And both of you can respond to this. And let's talk for a moment about the value of community theater, having that place to do the magic that happens there. Why, Steve, is that important?
I think community theater is a vital part of a thriving community and a place where people want to live. Now, people will move here that never have seen a play and never thought they would. In fact, I've got somebody coming to the Play That Goes Wrong who said, I've never been to a play. And he said, this will be a good opportunity for my wife and I to have a date night.
Nice.
Think about that.
Sure.
But anyway, there's so much that I think it just offers to the children and to the adults. Some people have always wanted to be on stage and were afraid to. And, you don't feel as intimidated if you were, on the walker sitter stage or something like that. So I just think it's very vital to your community. Not every child is a sports person or an athlete, and they can come and show their passion and their talent on stage. And we see a lot of that. We see it in adults as well.
Karen?
I don't know that I could say that any better. It just gives... There are people that have this thing in them, this creative expression, and they need to get it out. And there's not always, in, like you said, sports and other things, there's no way for them to do that. And I think Benton Hall provides not just the plays and the opportunity, but it's such a big old building. They have meetings and things for the kids. It gives them a chance, not just during the shows, but at other times, to belong. It doesn't go away after the show, and you can tell that at Benton Hall. It's there all the time for those kids, and that's really important. Football's always there, basketball, there's always a sport, there's always something to do in band. But Benton Hall, this big old building, can house all these adults and all these children, and there's a chance to create and be comfortable there all the time.
Yes.
That's important.
Kind of open up your horizons a bit, right?
It does. It gives them a chance to do that. To belong.
That's wonderful. A place to belong.
Yeah.
Welcome home, Karen.
And welcome Blue Moon.
And welcome Blue Moon. That's right. All your wonderful people, and your show that's coming up real soon.
Yep.
Starting in July.
Yep.
Legend of Tom Dooley. Steve, good to see you again.
Thank you for having us.
We'll be talking soon. Can't wait to see you in Benton Hall.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
It's great.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.